reason I say that is because we live in a place where we wrap ourselves but once we go in, we know, hey, we can, take that off because there's either going to be a heater or an air conditioning that is going to change our environment. But I want you to think about a time when that wasn't so. Okay? Buildings didn't have it. Now I want you to think about Philadelphia. How many of you have been to Philadelphia? Needless to say, Philadelphia is hot in the summer. It's hot. Now, when these people went to Philadelphia to kind of tinker with that first organized government, a lot of people came from southern states. But there was a large number of people that came from northern states. And in the north, it's cold. So they came with warm clothing. Now they're in Philadelphia. There is no air conditioning. There's no fans in the buildings. To add insult to injury, they decided that it was going to be in secret. They didn't have to worry about having a bug in the room or having somebody's cell phone in the room because that wasn't invented. But in order to get privacy, what did they have to do? What do you think they had to do? No, this is during the time that they're meeting. Okay? There's no air conditioning, it's really hot, but you want it in private. What do you do? What do you do to make a room cooler in the summer when there's no air conditioning?
Fans.
Well, you have no fans, there's no electricity. What do? You can't do it in this room because we've got air conditioning. But if the air conditioning went off,
Outside?
it'd be really nice to open those windows, which you can't, because we don't have windows that actually open. But during that time, you open the windows, you open the doors, you get a breeze. But they decided to do it in secret. And what do you do when you do things in secret? You close the doors, you close the windows, you made sure that the sound didn't get out. Okay? They made it in secret because they were going to do something that they weren't supposed to do. They weren't supposed to do what they did. They were supposed to be there to fix, not to throw away. And very early on, they decided that that form of government they had was not fixable, and they were going to throw it away. So they didn't want anybody to find out about it until they were done. Because if somebody had found out about it, they would have said, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, and they'd get other people to do it. So they worked very long hours. They argued and debated for a long time. And it was really hot, and people's tempers, I don't know if you realize, when it gets hot, people's tempers go off very quickly. A lot more than when it's cold. Okay? That's why they say that when people are angry, they get heated. Because it gets hot, and you get kind of riled up. So it was that type of tenacious relationship that was taking place. And they finally, after all of this debate where people were arguing and fighting and drinking more than they should have, they had a finished document. And this is the very human part of the story. Okay? Think about you writing a term paper. And you're at the end. You're like, done. That was painful. And your friend says to you, yeah, but you forgot to talk about this. And you say to yourself, do I have to rewrite the whole thing again? And what does the human nature in you say? Not going to do it. I'm just going to turn it in this way. It didn't get done. It's not going to get done. I'm just turning it in because it was too painful to do it again. So at the very end, somebody said, you know what? We forgot to put a Bill of Rights in this thing. As they were leaving, as they were kind of, they had birthed the Constitution. And some guy probably at the other side of the room said, don't even talk about it. We're done. And they all left. But now, the process of having to get this document ratified, passed through all of the states, begins. And you know what's going to happen, right? You do a great thing, whether it's art or writing, and there's one little error in it, but everything else is beautiful. What do people focus on? Sure. Imagine that you're dressed to the tens, which is what they said, and your shoes are dirty, what do people focus on? Your shoes are dirty. So people began to focus on the fact that there is no Bill of Rights, there's no Bill of Rights, there's no Bill of Rights. Oh my God, it was terrible. It was terrible. There was almost another Revolutionary War because there was no Bill of Rights. And then ultimately they said, why are we arguing? Let's put it in. And then all of a sudden, it was done. Everybody agreed that they were going to add a Bill of Rights. So the Constitution came in with a Bill of Rights attached to it already. So it wasn't amended because it never existed without the Bill of Rights. But technically, it was amended because it was added at the end. So the first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights. It's called the Bill of Rights because what they do, welcome, what they do is that they provide individual rights. Okay? Individual rights to you and I. Okay? And those rights are rights that today we take for granted. Can anybody just tell me the 5 rights in the First Amendment? And by the way, we're not so many, I'm not calling you. What are the 5 rights in the First Amendment? We all know them, right? They're freedoms. Can anybody tell me any freedoms that we have? Very good. One right in the First Amendment. Another freedom.
I don't know, sir. Freedom of religion.
Very good. Now you got a third one. That was an easy
one.
Freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Did you hear who was hired at the University of Miami today? Or yesterday?
Like to...
You catch the sports yesterday?
To go and, I don't know.
Did you catch the sports yesterday?
Not really.
You didn't? Did you? You didn't listen to sports yesterday?
No.
Anybody listen to the news?
The coach from the football, right?
Some coach from the football. So what freedom am I talking about? Religion, speech.
Bear arms? I mean, that's another one.
Press. Freedom of the press. Freedom to write. Freedom of the press. Those are 3. Assembly. An assembly means that people have the right to get together to talk about the government. Okay? And the last one, which is the least known, is freedom to petition. And in Miami, and the reason I mentioned yesterday in the sports, is that in the last weekend, we hired at the University of Miami, I'm an alumni, that's why I say we, they hired a defensive coordinator for the football team. And what's unique about the defensive coordinator of the football team is that he's the son of the former mayor of Miami, Diaz. And Diaz is one of the few mayors to have ever been recalled. That means that the people got together and they started passing a petition saying, this guy gotta go. This guy gotta go. And they got enough signatures in that petition where they forced a new election during the term. And a new election he lost. That's the freedom of petition we're talking about. That's the freedom of petition we're talking about. So that's found in the First Amendment. First Amendment. And by the way, the beautiful thing about our Constitution, and I know that automatically when I mention the word, you were thinking boring. And to a certain extent it is. All constitutions are boring. I mean, don't let anybody else fool you. All constitutions are boring. However, ours is so small as far as the amount of writing that it's actually palatable to be able to read it. If you look at the European Constitution, European Union Constitution, it's like this. Okay? You're not going to read that unless you really have to because it's your job. Okay? Our Constitution fits in a very small book. I don't know if you've seen them on campus. From time to time they give them away on campus. You probably have seen them on posters. Okay? It's not very long. It's not very large. And there's a specific purpose and reason for that. And that's what makes it great. That it is flexible. That it is flexible. So, the First Amendment is like a sentence like a sentence long. And if I said to you, okay, I want you to memorize the First Amendment, the first thing you're going to say, oh my God. If I say, I want you to memorize a sentence, I say, that's not that. And therein is the beauty of most of the Constitution. It's very concise. It's very to the point. Let's talk a little bit at the very beginning about our Constitution. Our Constitution is made up of 3 sections. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Section number 1 is the preamble. And that's a fancy word for meaning the introduction. Okay. And the introduction is a very long run-on sentence, not grammatically very correct. Okay. And it basically tells you the purpose of the Constitution. It's one line and says, the purpose of this Constitution is blah, 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 whatever it is. Okay. Then, the main body, so let's try to do something that we can remember. The preamble is to the Constitution, as the introduction is to a book. So if you're reading a book, it's one of those fancy books, at the very beginning you may have an introduction that's written by somebody else saying, the author of this book is so-and-so, and his children, his family, and this is what he wrote, and this is... It gives you a little bit of background about the book, the intro. Okay? Some people call it the prologue, before. Okay? Then you have the main body of the Constitution. The main body of the Constitution is to the Constitution what chapters are to a book. So let's do this memory game. The main body of the Constitution are called articles. Articles are to the Constitution as chapters are to a book. Okay? Articles are to the Constitution as chapters are to the book. Okay? And then the third part of the Constitution are the amendments. Okay? And the amendments are the very end of the Constitution. Okay? The very end of the Constitution. And they are added from time to time as we believe that important things need to be added. The beautiful thing about our Constitution is it hasn't been amended very much. Okay? There's been less than 20 additional amendments after the first 10. And the first 10 came into being at the very beginning of the Union. So to have less than 20 changes to the Constitution means that we as a people haven't felt that there's a lot of things that merit changing the basic structure. I apologize, I should have this on the side.
Professor?
Yes, sir.
I forgot that today was Tuesday.
It is?
Yeah, I thought your class was supposed to be Monday and Wednesday.
Okay.
So I have an appointment at 10 today. But
So if you gotta go, you gotta
I'm
go.
gonna come back at 6 to, you know, I don't
Awesome.
wanna miss anything.
And we're gonna put it online so that you can watch some of the stuff that you missed.
So when
It's
I
not
go-
very interesting or very boring.
So when I go online, I can just go here on the course?
Hopefully, I'm gonna be able to put it on between now and my class at 6.
So if it's not there, then I just come in.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right. So, why am I getting caught up on the Constitution? Because it's the very foundation. The Constitution itself is the structure upon which everything else is built upon. The very structure is the skeleton. It's the skeleton. Now, it's not the major body of law. It's not the major body of law in the United States. Okay? The major body of law are things that fill in the gaps in the Constitution. So think about you. Okay? You're composed of a skeleton. But if you were all a skeleton, you'd all be scary, right? The major part of you is what we see, which is the things that fill out the skeleton. Okay? The skin, the organs, all of those things are things that are added to the basic structure. Okay? And all of our basic structures are pretty much the same. Okay? If you take two skeletons and you put them side to side, unless you're a biologist, you probably can't tell the difference, right? The difference is the additional stuff that's added that makes us a little different. The eye color, the skin color, whether you have hair, whether you don't have hair, whether it's curly, whether it's not curly. Those are the things. And that is added by each additional law. Now I'm going to ask you a basic question, and I think I know the answers to this.